Commander Elena Volkov stood on the observation deck of Orbital Station Prometheus, her breath catching as she watched the vessel approach. It shouldn't exist. Every law of physics she'd studied at the academy screamed that this thing couldn't be real. The ship was enormous, easily dwarfing the station's 3-kilometer span. But size wasn't what disturbed her. It was the geometry. The hull twisted in ways that hurt to observe, angles that seemed to fold into dimensions her eyes couldn't quite track. One moment it appeared sleek and streamlined, the next it looked like a crystalline mass of fractures and impossible spaces. "Ma'am, the readings they're not making sense," Lieutenant Marcus Webb said, his voice tight with anxiety. The young officer's hands trembled over his console. Mass fluctuates between 17 million tons and negative values. Energy signatures indicate it's both powered down and operating at levels that would vaporize a star. And the whole material. "Let me guess," Elena interrupted, her dark eyes never leaving the approaching monstrosity. "It's registering as multiple substances simultaneously." "Yes, ma'am. Steel, organic matter, exotic particles we don't have names for, and nothing. Pure void. All at once." The ship had appeared 6 hours ago at the edge of the Kepler system, materializing without the telltale signatures of FTL exit. No quantum wake, no gravitational ripples, no radiation burst. It was simply not there, and then it was. Every probe they'd sent toward it had vanished without a trace, not destroyed, just gone. Erased from existence the moment they crossed some invisible threshold around the vessel. Elena activated her comm unit. "Station-wide alert. All personnel to emergency stations. Seal all bulkheads. And someone get me a line to Earth Command." "Commander, Earth Command is already on hold," the communications officer called out. "They've been trying to reach us for the past 20 minutes, but our signals keep looping. Like they're being reflected back through time." Through the reinforced viewport, the ship continued its inexorable approach. It moved without thrust, without any visible means of propulsion. Space itself seemed to bend around it, reality warping like fabric caught in an invisible current. Elena noticed something else that made her blood run cold. The stars behind the ship weren't just obscured, they were wrong. Constellations she'd known since childhood were rearranged, colors shifted into spectrums that shouldn't be visible. "Distance?" she asked. Webb checked his instruments, then double-checked them, his face pale. "According to sensors, it's simultaneously 50,000 kilometers away and already docked with our hull. Both readings are registering as accurate." Elena's hand moved to her sidearm, a useless gesture against whatever this thing was. "Then I suppose we're about to have visitors." As if responding to her words, the station's lights flickered. Once. Twice. When they stabilized, Elena could have sworn the shadows in the corners of the deck had deepened, become almost solid. And somewhere in the distance, she heard something that might have been footsteps, or the sound of reality itself beginning to crack. The station's AI, Iris, had been humanity's most reliable computational system for 15 years. Its neural matrix was built on quantum processors that operated at near-perfect efficiency. That system was now screaming. Not literally, AIs didn't scream, but the cascade of error messages flooding Elena's command console might as well have been digital shrieks of terror. Iris was attempting to process the ship's existence and failing catastrophically. Every analysis loop created contradictions that spawned more contradictions, a recursive nightmare of impossible data. "Iris, status report," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the ice in her veins. The response came garbled, words overlapping with different versions of themselves. "Cannot confirm / ship does not exist / ship has always existed / warning, reality parameters exceeded / welcome home / error. Dr. James Okonkwo, the station's chief physicist, burst onto the command deck, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. "Commander, you need to see this. The ship, it sent us something. Not a transmission, that would be too normal. It implanted information directly into our databases. Bypassed every firewall, every security protocol. It's like the data was always there, and we just suddenly remembered it. Elena felt her stomach tighten. What kind of information? Okonkwo pulled up a holographic display. The text that appeared was in perfect English, but reading it made Elena's head throb. The words seemed to mean multiple things simultaneously, each interpretation equally valid and contradictory. We are the vessel of infinite recursion. We have come from where your mathematics break. We seek passage through your reality to return to our own. Your presence here is convenient but not necessary. Do not interfere. You cannot interfere. You have already failed to interfere. That's not a message, Marcus Webb whispered. That's a threat wrapped in a paradox. It's worse than that, Okonkwo said, his finger trembling as he pointed to the timestamp on the transmission. This message arrived 3 weeks ago. Before the ship appeared. But our systems only registered it 30 seconds ago. Time is breaking down around that thing. Elena pulled up the external feeds. The ship had moved closer, or perhaps distance had become meaningless. Its hull pulsed with patterns that her brain interpreted as both mathematical formulae and organic growth. She could see corridors inside the vessel, visible through walls that should have been solid. Figures moved within those corridors, humanoid but wrong, their movements stuttering like frames dropped from a film. "Commander, we're getting reports from all over the station," the communications officer announced. "People are seeing things. Crew members who died years ago walking the halls. Rooms that don't exist on our deck plans. And the gravity, it's fluctuating. D-Deck just reported experiencing sideways gravity for 40 seconds. Evacuate D-Deck, Elena ordered. In fact, evacuate all outer ring sections. Pull everyone to the core. Ma'am, some sections aren't responding. E-Deck is reporting that they can see us on the command deck, but when we look at E-Deck feeds, it's empty. Different timelines are bleeding together. Elena's mind raced through options, but every scenario ended the same way: they were helpless. The ship wasn't attacking them, it was simply existing near them, and that existence was tearing the fabric of normal spacetime apart. It was like placing a burning star next to an ice cube and expecting the ice to remain frozen. "Iris, can you establish any communication with the vessel?" she asked. The AI's response was different this time, calmer, but somehow more disturbing. "I am already in communication. I have been in communication since before I was created. The vessel of infinite recursion is asking if we understand. I do not understand my own understanding." Through the viewport, the ship had changed again. Now it looked almost familiar, like a distorted echo of human design. Elena realized with horror that it was adapting, mimicking Prometheus Station's architecture. Not copying, becoming. The boundary between the ship and their station was dissolving. "God help us," Marcus whispered. "God isn't answering," Elena replied. "Neither is Earth Command. We're on our own." The first crew member to physically encounter the ship was engineer Lisa Torres. She'd been in the maintenance tunnel between sections when space folded. One moment, she was replacing a faulty pressure valve. The next, she was standing in a corridor that belonged to no human construction. The walls breathed, she could see them expand and contract rhythmically. The floor beneath her boots rippled like liquid metal but remained solid. And the air tasted like mathematics, if mathematics could have flavor: sharp, precise, and impossible. "Torres to command," she said into her calm, fighting down panic. I don't know where I am. The tunnel just changed." Elena's voice came through clearly, which was somehow more frightening than static would have been. "Describe what you see." "The ship's interior." "But Commander, it's showing me things. Equations written in light on the walls. They're moving, solving themselves, creating new problems. And I can understand them. I shouldn't be able to, but I can see how they work. Torres walked forward, her footsteps echoing in keys that didn't exist in human music. Other figures moved in the distance, those same stuttering silhouettes. As one approached, she saw it clearly, a human shape, but constructed from fragments of different possibilities. One arm from a person who'd turned left, another from someone who'd turned right. A face that was every ethnicity and none, shifting between features faster than thought. The figure stopped before her and spoke. Its voice was every voice, male and female and other, young and old, harmonizing in a chorus of existence. You are observed. You are irrelevant. You are essential. Choose your continuity. I don't understand, Torres said, her scientific mind trying desperately to categorize the experience. Understanding is not prerequisite. Existence is. You exist in 17 timelines. In 4, you are dead. In 9, you never came aboard this station. In 3, you are us. In 1, you stop us. Which are you now? The corridor split before her, literally divided into multiple versions of itself. Torres could see down all the branches simultaneously. In one, she walked forward and emerged back at Prometheus Station. In another, she became part of the ship, her consciousness absorbed into its vast, recursive intelligence. In yet another, she found a control center, a way to shut the ship down. All futures were real, all equally probable. Back on the command deck, Elena watched in horror as Torres's biosigns began multiplying on the monitors. One Torres signature, then 2, then 17, each in a different state, alive, dead, transformed, escaped. Schrodinger's cat taken to a cosmic extreme. We're losing her, Dr. Okonkwo said. She's decoherating. Spreading across multiple quantum states. Can we pull her back? Back to what? Commander, the question assumes there's a single Torres to retrieve. Right now, she's all of them simultaneously. If we force a collapse of her quantum state, we might destroy her, save her, or create something entirely new. Elena made a decision based on pure instinct. Torres, if you can hear me, choose the timeline where you survive and come home. Focus on that. Believe in that. Reality is breaking, but you can anchor yourself. Think of something solid, something real. In the ship's corridor, Torres heard the words. She thought of her daughter back on Earth, 8 years old, waiting for her mother to return from this tour. She focused on that memory with every fiber of her being, the girl's laugh, her questions about space, the promise Torres had made to come home. The 17 timelines collapsed like a house of cards. Torres staggered, suddenly standing in a familiar maintenance tunnel. Behind her, the corridor to the ship sealed itself, space knitting back together. She fell to her knees, gasping, her mind trying to hold on to the impossible knowledge she'd glimpsed. Torres. Torres, respond. Elena's voice was sharp with concern. I'm here. I'm back. Commander, I saw inside that thing. It's not a ship, not really. It's a paradox engine. It travels by creating contradictions so powerful that reality has to resolve them. It moves by breaking the universe and then forcing existence to repair itself with the ship somewhere else. Can we stop it? Torres's laugh was bitter. Stop it? Commander, we can't even properly perceive it. But I learned something. It's not here by choice. It's running. Something is chasing it through dimensions, and we're caught in the crossfire. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. If this impossible ship was fleeing from something, what manner of horror could be pursuing it? Station Prometheus had a crew complement of 347 souls. By hour 18 of the ship's arrival, that number had become uncertain. Personnel logs showed contradictory information. Lieutenant Webb appeared on the duty roster as both deceased for 2 years and currently on shift. Dr. Okonkwo's file indicated he'd never been assigned to the station, yet there he stood, solid and present. 6 crew members appeared in the cafeteria who had no personnel records at all. When questioned, they insisted they'd been aboard for months, and others confirmed their memories. Reality is becoming negotiable, Okonkwo explained to the emergency council Elena had assembled. The ship's presence is creating what I can only describe as retroactive continuity. It's not changing the past, it's making multiple pasts equally true. Schrodinger's history. Commander Elena Volkov rubbed her temples, fighting a headache that felt like it originated from outside her skull. Give me something practical, Doctor. Can we shield ourselves from this effect? Shield ourselves from multiple timelines coexisting? Okonkwo shook his head. That's like asking if we can shield ourselves from the number 3. These aren't radiation or particles, they're fundamental restructuring of causality itself. A new voice spoke from the doorway, but we can anchor ourselves. Elena turned to see a woman she didn't recognize, tall, with silver-streaked hair and engineer's insignia. The woman smiled at Elena's confused expression. Captain Richards. I've commanded this station for 6 years. Or rather, I have in one timeline. In yours, I apparently never existed. The ship's influence is allowing me to bleed through. Explain. Quickly. Richard stepped forward, moving with the confidence of command. Elena felt an irrational spike of territorial anxiety. This woman was her, from a different possibility. I've lived through this before. 3 years ago, we encountered a similar vessel. Smaller, less powerful, but the same basic principle. We survived by creating a quantum anchor, a fixed point that reality couldn't rewrite. What kind of anchor? A moment of absolute certainty. An event so definitive, so observed, that no timeline can erase it. We used the station's fusion reactor, deliberately overloaded it for 0.03 seconds before emergency shutdown. The energy release was catastrophic enough that it burned itself into every possible timeline. It created a scar in reality that the ship couldn't cross. Torres, still shaken from her experience, spoke up, that would have killed everyone on the station. In 17 timelines, it did, Richard said calmly. But in 23, we survived. And in 5, including mine, we managed to force the ship away. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, Elena finished, recognizing the old philosophy. But there has to be another way. Marcus Webb had been silent, staring at his console. Now he looked up, his young face aged by stress. Commander, the ship is sending another message. Different from before. The holographic display activated. This time, the message was visual, a star chart, but wrong. Constellations twisted into configurations that hadn't existed for billions of years, or wouldn't exist for billions more. A path was highlighted through space, starting at their location and extending out into the void beyond known space. Words appeared beneath the chart, you are the anchor. You have always been the anchor. The pursuer follows our wake. If we remain, IT arrives. If we depart, IT follows. You must choose, become the lock, or become the hunted. It's giving us an ultimatum, Okonkwo breathed. Either we help trap it here, or it leaves and whatever's chasing it comes for us instead. Elena felt the weight of command like never before. 347 lives, or whatever uncertain number of lives now existed aboard her station, depended on her decision. But it wasn't really a choice, was it? One unknown horror or another, with their fragile station caught between. Captain Richards, Elena said, deliberately using the other woman's rank, acknowledging her reality, if we create this anchor, can we control what it locks in place? Richards met her eyes, commander to commander across timelines. Yes. But someone has to be at the focal point. Someone has to become the fixed observer, the absolute certainty. That person's timeline becomes the true one, and all others collapse into it. And that person experiences every collapsed timeline simultaneously. Every version of events, every possibility, every outcome, all at once. It would either grant ultimate knowledge or induce immediate psychosis. Probably both. The command deck fell silent. Elena looked around at her crew, solid, ghostly, certain, uncertain, all existing at once. She thought of Earth, 3 light-years distant, unaware that reality itself was unraveling at humanity's furthest outpost. "Prep the reactor," she said. "And bring me every quantum physicist we have. We're going to create an anchor. But we're going to do it right, trap the ship, repel its pursuer, and survive. All 3. Simultaneously." "That's impossible," Okonkwo protested. Elena smiled grimly. "Doctor, everything about this situation is impossible. We might as well aim high." Dr. James Okonkwo had spent his entire career studying quantum mechanics. He understood entanglement, superposition, wave function collapse. But the equations he was deriving now came from no textbook, no theory he'd ever encountered. They came from the ship itself, whispered into his mind through means he couldn't identify. He stood before a holographic whiteboard in the science lab, his stylus moving in frantic patterns, writing formulae that hurt to perceive. Around him, 4 other physicists worked on complementary problems, their faces showing the strain of trying to comprehend the incomprehensible. "It's not just quantum physics," muttered Dr. Helena Rourke, a specialist in theoretical mathematics. "It's temporal calculus merged with topology. Spacetime isn't a fabric here, it's a decision tree. Every point contains all possible outcomes, and the ship navigates by choosing which outcomes become real. Then we need to limit its choices," Okonkwo said, his voice rough from hours of continuous work. "The anchor has to eliminate possibilities. Force a single timeline into existence so absolute that nothing can alter it. That requires infinite energy at a single point," another physicist protested. "Even a controlled reactor overload won't." "Unless we don't create energy," Captain Richards interrupted, entering the lab with Elena. "What if we create absence? Pure negation. A point in spacetime where nothing can exist except what we define. Not a burst of energy but a vacuum of possibility." Okonkwo stopped writing, his mind racing. A quantum null point. God, that might actually work. If we can create a zone where the ship's reality-breaking ability simply doesn't function, where only one timeline can exist. "Can you build it?" Elena asked. "The math says yes. Reality says probably not. But given our current situation, the distinction between those 2 answers is becoming irrelevant." Okonkwo pulled up the station schematics. "We'd need to jury-rig the reactor to emit a specific frequency of gravitons, create a standing wave in spacetime, and then collapse it at precisely the right moment. Margin of error, 0. Torres, who joined the meeting, pointed to a section of the calculations. "This part here, the collapse mechanism. It requires an observer to trigger it. Someone inside the null point to witness the moment of creation and make it real through observation." "The anchor," Richard said. "I told you someone would have to be at the focal point." Elena studied the equations, her command training allowing her to grasp the essential truth even if the details escaped her. Someone would have to stand at the center of this quantum storm, experiencing all possible timelines simultaneously while forcing one specific outcome into existence. It was suicide, or apotheosis. Possibly both. "I'll do it," Marcus Webb said quietly from the doorway. Everyone turned. The young lieutenant stepped forward, his jaw set with determination that seemed beyond his years. "I've been thinking about what Torres said, that she saw 17 versions of herself. Well, I've been seeing them too. Different versions of me, making different choices. In one timeline, I stayed on Earth and never joined the service. In another, I died in the academy. In another, I'm captain of this station. I'm already spread across possibilities. Maybe that makes me the right choice." "Lieutenant," Elena began. "No, Commander, hear me out." Webb's eyes were clear, focused. Everyone on this station is fracturing. We're all becoming unstuck in time. But if one of us willingly accepts all those timelines, integrates them instead of being torn apart by them, maybe we can use that. I can be the anchor because I'm already learning to exist as multiple versions of myself. Okonkwo looked at his calculations again, then at Webb with new understanding. He's right. Someone already experiencing quantum decoherence would be better suited to withstand the null point collapse. It's like matching resonance frequencies. He's already vibrating at the same frequency as the problem. Elena wanted to refuse, to find another way, but command meant making impossible choices. She looked at Webb, young, brave, and somehow already certain of his decision across multiple timelines. If we do this, there's no guarantee you'll survive. Even if your body remains intact, your mind might shatter across infinite possibilities. I understand, ma'am. But I've seen the timelines where we don't act. Where the ship's pursuer arrives. Trust me, this is the better option. Captain Richards nodded slowly, her expression carrying the weight of someone who'd made similar choices. He's ready. I can see it. Some people are born for moments like this, nexus points where one person's decision ripples through all of reality. Then we proceed, Elena said, her voice hard with command authority that barely masked her grief. Dr. Okonkwo, you have 6 hours to build this device. Torres, work with engineering to modify the reactor. Richards, help me coordinate station-wide preparations. And Lieutenant Webb. Ma'am. Thank you. For your service. For your sacrifice. And for your courage. Webb smiled, a strange smile that seemed to come from multiple versions of himself at once. In some timelines, I'm already dead. In others, I never existed. But in this one, right now, I get to save everyone. That's not a sacrifice, Commander. That's a gift. As the team dispersed to their tasks, Elena stood alone for a moment in the lab, staring at the equations that might save them all. The mathematics of madness, written in light and desperation. She thought about all the versions of herself across all possible timelines, and wondered if any of them had found a better solution. Probably not. Some disasters were universal constants. The null-point device was 3 hours from completion when the second ship arrived. It didn't materialize like the first vessel had. Instead, it emerged from the first ship's wake like a predator following a blood trail through water. If the vessel of infinite recursion was wrong, this thing was anti-wrong. It was so aggressively normal, so absolutely mundane, that its very ordinariness in this context was terrifying. It was a perfect black sphere. No markings, no features, no visible means of propulsion. Just a ball of absolute darkness 3 kilometers in diameter, hanging in space like a pupil in reality's eye. That's it, Captain Richards said, her voice hollow. That's the pursuer. Exactly as it appeared in my timeline. Elena stared at the sphere through the viewport. Unlike the recursive vessel, this thing was perfectly stable. Sensors gave consistent readings, solid matter, room temperature, 0 energy emissions. It was the most normal object they'd encountered in days, and that normalcy was somehow more disturbing than all the ship's reality-warping chaos. What does it do? Elena asked. It erases, Richards replied. Not destroys, erases. Removes things from having ever existed. In my timeline, it caught up to the ship and touched it. The ship didn't explode or collapse. It was simply, never there. Never had been. And then the sphere started on everything that had interacted with the ship. People, places, events, all edited out of reality like corrections in a manuscript. Torres checked her sensors, her hand steady despite the fear in her eyes. It's moving. Slowly, but deliberately. Heading toward the recursive vessel. Through the viewport, the impossible ship seemed to react. Its geometry twisted more frantically, cycling through configurations faster than before. It was trying to escape, Elena realized, but it couldn't. The sphere's absolute normalcy was preventing it from breaking reality enough to flee. It was trapped. How long until the sphere reaches it? Elena demanded. At current velocity, 42 minutes, Webb reported. His voice was calm, too calm. He'd already begun integrating his other selves, preparing for his role as anchor. Commander, if we're going to act, it has to be soon. Once the sphere makes contact with the ship, the causality cascade will begin. Everything connected to the ship will start being erased. That includes us, Okonkwo added grimly. We've interacted with it, observed it, been changed by it. We're in its timeline now. When the sphere erases the ship, we go with it. Elena's mind raced through options. The original plan had been to anchor the ship, trap it at Prometheus Station, and find a way to contain or understand it. But with the pursuer here, that plan became suicide. If they anchored the ship and the sphere reached it anyway, they'd all be erased. Could we anchor the sphere instead? She asked. Okonkwo shook his head. The sphere is already absolute. It doesn't exist across multiple timelines, it's perfectly singular. That's its power. It's the one thing in the universe that's exactly what it appears to be, nothing more, nothing less. You can't anchor what's already anchored. Then we need to get them both away from us, Torres said. Use the anchor to fix our station as the point of reality that can't be changed, and let the two anomalies fight it out somewhere else. That won't work, Richards countered. The sphere follows the ship's wake. If the ship leaves, the sphere leaves. But if we anchor ourselves, we create a gravity well in causality. Both of them will be drawn to us, the ship because it can't break free from a fixed point, the sphere because it follows the ship. We'll have them both on top of us. The command deck fell silent as the implications sank in. They were caught in a cosmic vice, about to be crushed between two fundamental forces of reality. Webb spoke, his voice carrying harmonics from multiple timelines. There's another option. We don't anchor the station. We anchor the space between the ship and the sphere. Create a quantum barrier that neither can cross, the ship can't break it because it's too fixed, the sphere can't erase it because it's too uncertain. Trap them on opposite sides of an impossible wall. That would require twice the energy, Okonkwo protested. And two observers. Two people experiencing the full weight of collapsing timelines. Then I'll need a partner, Webb said, looking directly at Elena. She felt the words like a physical impact. Lieutenant, I can't. You're already decoherating too, Commander. You've been in contact with the ship longer than anyone. You have memories from Captain Richards' timeline even though you deny it. You remember graduating from the academy alongside people who don't exist in your original history. You're becoming unstuck. Elena wanted to deny it, but couldn't. He was right. For hours now, she'd been experiencing flashes of other lives, other choices. In one timeline, she'd married Marcus. In another, she died during the Mars expedition. In yet another, she'd never left Earth. The boundaries of herself were dissolving. If we both serve as anchors, Webb continued, we can split the load. Each of us holds half the barrier. It's the only way to generate enough certainty to keep both anomalies at bay. Captain Richards stepped forward. He's right. And for what it's worth, Commander, in my timeline, you made this choice. And you survived. Changed, but alive. Elena looked around the command deck at her crew, people who might not have existed yesterday, who might not exist tomorrow, but who were counting on her now. She thought about her duty, her oath, the burden of command. Prep both sides of the barrier, she ordered. Lieutenant Webb and I will serve as anchors. Dr. Okonkwo, you'll trigger the collapse from here. Torres, be ready to seal all sections the moment we activate. And Richards, if this fails, if we're erased from existence, try to remember that we tried. I will, Richards promised. Across all timelines. The sphere continued its slow, inevitable approach. The ship writhed in space, trapped between impossible mathematics and absolute erasure. And aboard Station Prometheus, two people prepared to stand at the boundary of existence itself, to become the wall between chaos and annihilation. Elena just hoped that when it was over, enough of her would remain to remember why she'd made this choice. Marcus Webb stood in the starboard observation module, his body wrapped in a web of quantum sensors. His mind was already stretched across 17 timelines, and he could feel more bleeding in with every passing second. In one, he was terrified. In another, exhilarated. In a third, already dead. But in this one, the one he chose to make real, he was certain. 200 meters away, on the port side, Commander Elena Volkov stood in an identical configuration. Through the station's internal comms, he could hear her breathing, steady, controlled, the rhythm of someone who'd made peace with impossible odds. Quantum sensors reading optimal, Dr. Okonkwo's voice came through the speakers. Webb, you're showing coherence across 19 distinct timelines now. Elena, you're at 17. The overlap between your probability fields is remarkable. It's like you're synchronizing. Elena's voice was calm. How long until the sphere reaches the ship? 7 minutes. The ship is trying to collapse itself, to escape by ceasing to exist, but the sphere's presence is preventing it. It's locked in reality, maybe for the first time in its existence. Webb could see the sphere through his viewport, that perfect black circle, so simple, so absolute. He could also see the recursive ship, now cycling through configurations so rapidly it appeared to be vibrating. Two cosmic absolutes about to collide, and humanity caught in the middle. Beginning reactor modifications, Torres reported from engineering. Once we start, there's no stopping. The graviton emission will build to critical levels in 90 seconds. At that point, you'll feel the null field begin to form. Understood, Elena said. Marcus, are you ready? It was the first time she'd used his first name. Across their multiple timelines, in some they were strangers, in others friends, in a few something more. But in this moment, in this timeline, they were partners in the only way that mattered, two anchors holding reality together. Ready, Commander. Let's build a wall. Initiating reactor modification, Torres announced. May God have mercy on us all. The effect was immediate. Webb felt reality itself begin to shift around him. The observation module remained solid, but everything beyond it started to flicker. Space became negotiable, time became flexible. He could see the ship more clearly now, see the crew that wasn't crew, the intelligence that wasn't quite intelligence. They were aware of him, these beings from beyond dimensional boundaries, and they were grateful, apologetic, desperate. All and none. I can feel them, Elena's voice came through, strained now. The ship. It's not evil. It's just, lost. It broke through into our dimension by accident and can't find its way back. And the sphere? Webb asked, though he could feel the answer forming in his mind. The sphere is reality's immune system. A cosmic white blood cell, destroying foreign elements that don't belong. It's not malicious either. It's just, doing what it was made to do. The graviton emissions hit critical. Webb felt the null field begin to form, and it was like having his consciousness spread across the surface of a balloon being inflated to cosmic proportions. He existed in the starboard module, but also in the port module with Elena, also in the space between the ship and sphere, also in every moment of his life simultaneously. Anchors engaging. Okonkwo shouted. Webb, Elena, you need to focus. Choose the reality you want. Make it certain. Webb understood now. The null field wasn't something they created, it was something they became. He and Elena were the barrier, their combined consciousness spread across space-time, their absolute certainty about who they were and what they wanted, making a wall reality couldn't breach. But what did they want? Through the quantum link, he felt Elena's mind merge with his. 17 timelines for her, 19 for him, all collapsing, combining, integrating. They saw each other's lives, Elena's childhood in Moscow, her first day at the academy, the death of her brother in the Belt Wars. Marcus's upbringing in New Lagos, his fascination with the stars, his fear that he'd never be good enough. We want, Elena's voice said through their shared consciousness, for everyone to live. We want, Marcus added, for the ship to find its way home. We want, they said together, for the sphere to understand that some foreign elements aren't infections, they're just lost travelers. The null field exploded into existence. It wasn't visible, not exactly, but every sensor on Prometheus station registered it, a barrier of pure impossibility stretching between the ship and sphere. The recursive vessel hit it and couldn't pass, couldn't break through because Marcus and Elena had decided it couldn't, and their certainty across 36 combined timelines was too strong to deny. The sphere hit it from the other side and couldn't erase it, couldn't delete something that existed with such absolute conviction. Both cosmic anomalies stopped. Held. Trapped on opposite sides of a wall made of human will. But the field was unstable. Marcus could feel it trying to collapse, reality trying to reassert its normal rules. They could hold it for minutes, maybe hours, but not forever. Eventually, their certainty would waver, and the barrier would fail. We need a solution, Elena thought spoke through their connection. Not a stalemate. A resolution. Marcus felt her idea forming at the same time it formed in his own mind, because they were thinking together now, two minds operating as one distributed consciousness. The ship couldn't go back the way it came. The sphere would follow it forever. But what if there was a third option? Dr. Okonkwo, Marcus said, his physical voice sounding strange to his distributed consciousness, can you modify the barrier? Make it not just a wall, but a door. A door to where? The physicist responded. Sideways, Elena answered. Not forward or back in space-time, but perpendicular to it. Another dimension entirely. If we can open a passage that leads neither to the ship's origin nor forward into our universe, the sphere will have nothing to follow. The ship exits our reality, the sphere's purpose becomes moot. Through the quantum field, they felt the ship respond. Its geometry shifted, forming something that might have been excitement, might have been hope. It understood. It wanted to go home, but if home was unreachable, anywhere but here would suffice. The sphere, by contrast, remained impassive. It didn't want or feel. It simply was, an absolute force following an absolute directive. To open a perpendicular dimension, you'd need to bend spacetime in directions it doesn't naturally go, Okonkwo protested. The energy requirements are already here, Torres interrupted, her voice tight with realization. The ship is a reality engine. It warps spacetime just by existing. And the barrier is holding all that energy in place. If we shape the barrier differently, curve it instead of flattening it, we could create a fold. A bubble that pinches off from our universe entirely. Do it, Elena ordered. Marcus and I will hold the shape. Just tell us what to believe. Okonkwo's fingers flew across his console. You need to convince reality that the barrier isn't flat. That it curves back on itself. A Klein bottle topology, a surface that connects to itself through impossible geometry. If you can maintain certainty in that shape, the ship's own reality warping will do the rest. Marcus felt Elena's understanding mirror his own. A Klein bottle, a container with no true inside or outside, a shape that existed in dimensions beyond normal perception. They'd studied it in theoretical mathematics, never imagining they'd have to become one. Together, Elena thought spoke. Together, Marcus agreed. They reshaped their certainty. The barrier between the ship and sphere began to curve, to twist, to fold back through dimensions that human eyes couldn't see but human minds could imagine. The ship felt the change and moved with it, allowing itself to be guided into the fold. The sphere advanced, still following its directive, but as it touched the curved barrier it found nothing to erase. The ship wasn't there anymore, wasn't anywhere in the sphere's dimensional framework. It had slipped sideways into a pocket of reality that intersected with their universe only at one impossible point. And that point was closing. Marcus and Elena felt the strain of holding the Klein bottle topology. It was like holding a dozen different contradictory thoughts as absolute truth simultaneously. Their consciousness stretched, thinned, began to fray at the edges. They could feel themselves starting to dissolve into the probability field. "Let go!" Richard shouted over the comm, "You've done it. The ship is sealed away, the sphere has nothing to pursue." "Let go!" Richard shouted over the comm, "You've done it. The ship is sealed away, the sphere has nothing to pursue. Let the barrier collapse." But they couldn't. Not yet. The fold wasn't complete. If they released it now, the bubble would rupture and the ship would come spilling back into their dimension, and the entire crisis would begin again. They had to hold on until the topology stabilized, until the pocket universe sealed itself off completely. Marcus, Elena's voice was fading, spreading across too many timelines. "I can't feel where I end and you begin. I know. I can't either. We're integrating. Becoming something new. Is that bad? I don't know. But it's what needs to happen. To hold this shape, we can't be two people anymore. We have to be one unified consciousness." Through their shared awareness, they felt each other completely. Elena's fear of losing herself merged with Marcus's fear of inadequacy. Her determination met his creativity. Her experience merged with his innovation. Boundaries dissolved. Two became one. The entity that had been Marcus Webb and Elena Volkov held the Klein bottle topology with perfect certainty, and the pocket universe sealed. The recursive ship drifted away through dimensions perpendicular to normal spacetime, finally free of pursuit, finally able to search for its home in peace. The sphere hung motionless for exactly 3 seconds, long enough for the merged consciousness to wonder if it would attack them instead. Then it simply vanished, blinking out of existence as suddenly as it had arrived. Its purpose completed, it had no reason to remain. The barrier collapsed. Reality snapped back to normal with a sensation like a rubber band released after being stretched to its limit. The graviton emissions from the reactor died away. The quantum sensors went dark. And in 2 observation modules on opposite sides of Station Prometheus, 2 bodies slumped to the floor. Dr. Okonkwo and Torres rushed to the starboard module while Captain Richards and a medical team sprinted to the port. They found Marcus Webb and Elena Volkov unconscious but alive, their vital signs stable but strange, their heartbeats were synchronized, their neural patterns showing identical waveforms. "Are they?" Torres couldn't finish the question. "Alive," the medical officer confirmed. "But changed. Their brain patterns are mirrored. It's like they're one mind in 2 bodies now. They were unconscious for 43 hours. When they woke, they opened their eyes at exactly the same moment, in perfect synchronization." "Commander?" Okonkwo asked Elena carefully. "Lieutenant? Can you hear me?" The 2 figures sat up, moving in eerie unity. When they spoke, their voices harmonized, saying the same words simultaneously, "We can hear you. We're here. We're us. We're different, but we're here." Over the following weeks, they learned to separate their consciousness again, to function as individuals rather than as a distributed entity. But they were never quite the same. They could feel each other's thoughts across any distance, finish each other's sentences, share memories and dreams. The investigation of the incident took months. Earth Command wanted answers that nobody could really provide. How do you explain that they'd anchored reality itself? That 2 crew members had temporarily merged into a single quantum consciousness to save everyone? In the end, the official report was heavily redacted. The world learned that Station Prometheus had encountered an anomalous vessel, that there had been risks, that the crew had responded with courage and innovation, and that the crisis had been resolved. The details remained classified at levels most governments didn't even acknowledge existed. Marcus Webb and Elena Volkov both received commendations. They were offered positions at the Academy, teaching roles where their unique experience could help prepare others for the impossible challenges waiting in deep space. They accepted. Captain Richards, who had bled through from another timeline, chose to remain at Prometheus Station. Her presence had stabilized during the crisis, she was fully real now, her alternate history integrated into the prime timeline. She took command of the station, bringing experience from 2 lives to the role. On the last day before their departure, Marcus and Elena stood together in the observation deck where it had all begun, looking out at the stars. The space where the recursive ship had been was empty now, perfectly, normally empty. No impossible geometries, no folded dimensions, just the regular darkness of space punctuated by distant suns. "Do you think it made it home?" Marcus asked. "I don't know," Elena replied. "But I think it's still looking. Still traveling. And maybe that's enough. Do you regret what happened? What we became?" Elena considered the question. She could feel Marcus in the back of her mind, not intrusively, but present, like a second heartbeat. They would never be fully separate again, would always be 2 people who had once been one, carrying that unity within them forever. "No," she said finally. "We saved 347 lives. Or however many lives there actually are now. We gave a lost traveler a chance to find peace. We stood between impossible forces and held firm. That's what we signed up for when we joined the service, to go into the dark places and bring light. Even if it changes us. Especially if it changes us. Growth is change. Evolution is change. We encountered something beyond understanding, and instead of being destroyed by it, we integrated it, learned from it, became something new. That's not tragedy, that's triumph." Marcus smiled, feeling her conviction resonating with his own thoughts. "Captain Richards told me something before we left. She said that in every timeline she observed, humanity survives not because we're the strongest or smartest, but because we're adaptable. We change when we need to." "Then we're proof of that," Elena said. "We changed, and we're still here." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, a ship that should never have existed was finding its way through dimensions humans had never named. Somewhere else, a sphere of absolute darkness was waiting for the next cosmic infection that needed erasing. And here, aboard Station Prometheus, life continued, slightly stranger, slightly more aware that reality was more flexible than anyone had imagined, but continuing nonetheless. "Ready to go teach the next generation?" Marcus asked. "Ready to teach them that the universe is weirder than they can possibly imagine, and that's okay, because we're weirder too," Elena replied. They left the observation deck together, walking in unconscious synchronization, 2 people who had touched infinity and returned changed but unbroken. Behind them, the stars wheeled in their ancient dance, indifferent to the small dramas of biological intelligence, spinning on through the dark with secrets still to tell. Prometheus Station's logs would record the incident as first contact event, resolved. But those who had lived through it knew better. It hadn't been first contact with aliens. It had been first contact with the very edges of reality itself, with the borders where physics became negotiable and existence became a matter of consensus rather than law. And they had not just survived that contact. They had negotiated with it, bargained with it, and ultimately won. Not through force, but through the very human ability to change, to adapt, to become whatever was necessary in the moment. The universe had shown them impossibility, and they had responded by becoming impossible themselves, just for long enough to matter. In the end, that was enough. Everything about that ship had been wrong. Yet nothing had stopped it, except 2 humans who chose to stand firm in the face of cosmic chaos, who looked at impossible geometry and absolute erasure and said simply, "Not today. Not here. Not while we can still stand." And because they believed it with absolute certainty, across 17 and 19 timelines merged into one, it became true. Reality, it turned out, respected conviction more than it respected its own rules. And that, more than anything, was what would allow humanity to survive the infinite strange darkness waiting among the stars. END